Welcome back to episode 51 of the Fire Rescue Wellness Podcast. It's AZ, and today I sat down with Brandon Dreiman, who is an Indianapolis firefighter and member of the peer support team and of the wellness program. And we talked about his journey and his darkness hitting rock bottom and how getting help for himself led to a trajectory of helping other people in a lot of different ways. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I know you will too. So check out episode 51 and hear about Brandon and all of the wonderful resources that Indy Fire Department is providing. Thank you for joining me on the Fire Rescue Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, AZ. I find the research and resources and then provide the fire service with the so what, now what, to ensure the health and well-being of every member of our profession. Together, let's thrive. Hey, podcast listeners, it's AZ with another episode of the Fire Rescue Wellness Podcast. And today I am here with my friend. Well, we've actually been friends online for quite a while, and this is the first time we are seeing each other's faces virtually. Welcome, Brandon Dreiman. Say hello to my podcast listeners.
Hello, everyone. Hello, AZ. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today.
I'm really excited for this conversation, and I'm also really excited I get to meet you. Thanks to our mutual friend, Dina Ali, we get to meet in person. Dina. Amazing, Dina. We get to meet in person in August in South Carolina, so I'm sure much more conversation will happen then. But
I hope so.
I know, right? I always start my podcast in the same way, which is 3 rapid fire questions that you get to answer in any way that you want to. So the first one is, who is Brandon Dreiman?
Well, I would say, to kind of lead things off, that I'm a dad and a husband. Kind of broadly speaking, I consider myself a helper, a helping person, and I like to do that in a lot of different ways. I'm also, like, kind of, maybe as we discussed pre-show, kind of introverted, but I'm a bookstore, coffee shop, rainy day kind of person as well. Like, I like those calm, gentle days, but also a tattooed punk rock fan, a beekeeper. I like training jiu-jitsu, and I think kind of part and parcel with what I'm doing now is that I'm a person in long-term recovery.
I've learned so much already. It's kind of like, I had Dr. Dan Bornstein on the podcast, and he told me that he liked to drive race cars. And I was like, what? And so now I know that you're a tattooed punk rock beekeeper. Unbelievable.
There you go. See?
All right. Well, this is already good. So tell me what sets your soul on fire.
It probably sounds maybe a little lofty or weird sounding, but it sets my soul on fire to help people get back into the light. And what I mean by that is what I do day in and day out with peer support and as a recovery coach and even like as a yoga teacher. A lot of the people that I meet are in a really dark place, and they've been there for a while, and they're closed off, and they have the weight of the emotions like on them all the time. And they're scared, and it's terrifying. And finally, they muster up the courage to be vulnerable and come in and talk to me and say, this is what the problem is. And I really love that period of time where you can see that they recognize that they're not being judged. Like, I'm looking at this objective, and what do you want to do about it? Not what I would do about it. What do you want to do about it? And what are your obstacles going to be? And how do we work together to get those obstacles out of your way? And I've heard you mention it on your show a few times, the idea of I've got your back, And to me, that's what that helping people into the light is, when they realize that somebody else has my back, and you can see it on their face, the relief, and the lightning, and later on seeing them out in public and how well people can do once they get better. Like, that's why I get up every morning, is just to have those opportunities to help people see the light again and to feel that brightness.
And as someone who has also been in the dark, you're right. Those words of I've got you are so powerful. And we will dig into that a little bit more as we go on. All right, third question. And sometimes people don't know how to answer this, but I think if you can't answer it, I'll answer for you. How are you changing the world, Brandon?
How am I changing the world? Well, hopefully, I'm changing the world with kindness, one person at a time. Like I think when we think, well, I can't change the world, I'm just me. It's like, no, we're all part of the world. What happens to one of us happens to the whole world. That's just how it works because we're all part of the same universe, the same being. So, I spent a lot of my time, a lot of years not being kind. I was, in addiction, I was very selfish, and that was my priority was, looking out for myself. And once I got into recovery and got involved as a peer supporter and started to think about how I could give back, I had to think about what kind of person I wanted to be in that role. And I was always a fan of Mr. Rogers. I still am. And that was always one of the things that I took away from Mr. Rogers' show was be kind to other people. It matters. It really does make a difference. So hopefully that's how I'm changing the world is by being kind to other people, putting that positivity out there, and also maybe hopefully as an example that other people can see that you can be kind and still maybe be tough at the same time, and that's okay. Like you can do those things together. They're not exclusive. And there's nothing weak about being a kind person. I think sometimes we get hung up on, we think it's really neat to tell it like it is and have those tough talks, and you can do those kinds of things and still be gentle about it and not be a jerk. And that's what I try to do and maybe be that example for others.
That's a great observation because if you can't be anything else, I think it's my friend Wendy Earlbeck that says this, if you can't be anything else, just be kind. I
Yeah.
love that, Brandon. Well, I wanted to mention, just as a little bit of a disclaimer, Brandon does work for the Indianapolis Fire Department, so the views we have in this conversation today are his own views and they don't represent those of his employer. But Indianapolis has a lot of wonderful things going on for both their mental health and physical health within the department. And as Brandon mentioned, he is a peer supporter. But I also heard you mention sort of being in a dark place, and you said recovery a couple times. Can you walk us through just a little bit? What do you mean by that? What was going on in your life during that time?
Yeah. I had severe alcohol use disorder. Um, and it started early on in life, and just like addictions become, they start small and become big. It's a chronic progressive illness. And after I'd been on the job for several years, I was drinking a lot, but I never drank on duty. And that was always my excuse that I didn't have a problem. If I had a problem, I would have to drink on duty. But then I would come off duty and buy a half a gallon of vodka, and that's how I would spend the next 48 hours was polishing that off. So I was in bad shape. I don't think at that time we were having the conversations in our culture about how to help people in my position. So we did what we traditionally did, and I got put to bed. Um, and at home, my wife certainly knew that I had a problem, but she was concerned about reaching out to the department. She didn't know if it would get me jammed up somehow, but she didn't know how to access help. So basically, we were just all kind of waiting for me to eventually self destruct. And that's what happened. I came in one morning at shift change, and I had been drinking the night before. I felt fine. I didn't think anything was going on, and I got called for a random drug screen that morning. And I actually ended up testing positive on my breath test for alcohol because I had had so much alcohol the night before. So that was my self-destruct button on that day, and I had to confront it. Fortunately, at the IFD had a two-strike policy, so I got suspended, but I was able to go to our employee assistance program, talk with a really good social worker who understood the job, and he was absolutely amazing. Mark Smith is his name, just a brilliant social worker. Um, and I was able to come back, and at the time, our current chief, Ernie Malone, who's done so much with both mental and physical fitness for IFD, he was the assistant chief, and he was actually the one who gave me my paperwork to suspend me. But he was very humane about it. He said, the choice is yours at this point. If you want to get better, you can get better. This isn't the end of the road, but it's up to you to make the decision. Which I think adding that humanity back into that situation made all the difference for me. I saw, I was terrified that my world was over, and I saw, no, that through him, like there's hope, like I can get through this. And that's what I did and have dedicated myself to it ever since. And I knew I wasn't the only person on the job with that problem. And that's how I got involved in what I do now. And it's grown from there, certainly by leaps and bounds. But that's how I got there. And when I say that was 11 years ago, I got sober. So, and hopefully a lot of positive has come out of that since. But that's what I mean by being in recovery and the dark place, and coming out on the other side with a lot of growth, I hope.
That's an amazing positive story, and I love that you had a great experience at EAP. And my question for you is, was that just lucky? Did you just happen to get the one social worker who kind of had a clue about the job? Or has your department done a very good job curating a team of social workers that are helpful?
We've really tried, and maybe at that time it was luck, but I know one of the things that we have certainly worked on since I've been involved in behavioral health, and IMPD, our local police department, has a very good wellness program as well. So between our two agencies, there's over 3,000 people. So we're able, we have a little more push with the things we need when it comes to mental health. So we have worked really closely with our EAP to make sure that there are culturally competent people in there, that understand the job, and that we know we can trust. And we have that relationship worked out with their directors, that when we call, particularly if it's peer support, we need to get somebody in, they make that happen within 24 to 48 hours. Normally within 24 hours, we have somebody in to see a social worker if we've called ourselves. But we have really worked hard to cultivate that. And that's one of the things, EAPs typically in a lot of jurisdictions, are the low cost bidder, and they cover a lot of different disciplines as part of their role as a mental health provider, which is understandable. That's how it works. But too many agencies, I think, just throw their hands up in the air and say, well, this EAP doesn't work and it sucks and all this. And I just question, one, have you gone to it? Or is that just what one person who is already disgruntled told you? So have you experienced it for yourself? And if so, what have you tried to do about it? Are there answers, or are you just throwing your hands up? I mean, our job is to be professional problem solvers in really tough situations. So this is not beyond our capability to try and figure out how we make those things better. So that's my challenge to people who don't like their EAP is, what have you done about it, and have you experienced it, and what can you do to help start the process to make that better? Because it's an important resource for a lot of our people, and we need to make sure that it's doing what it's supposed to do.
And you're so right. And if you had let's say, chest pain, and you went to a doctor and you didn't care for how that doctor treated you, maybe you just didn't like the look of them or how their bedside manner, you wouldn't just throw up your hands and say, well, the doctors don't work. You would just find another doctor.
Yeah.
But for some reason with mental health, also with physical therapy, it seems to be this way. People give it one chance and then they just throw up their hands.
Yeah, and I think, unfortunately, I mean, it's great that that's a free option for our people, but I think sometimes we also get hung up on the idea that it's supposed to be free. If you can get that type of care for free through your EAP, awesome. But you know what? Sometimes we need to spend money on ourselves. And I certainly see firefighters spend a whole lot of money on a lot of things that are not necessary in their life. Your mental health is necessary. So where are your priorities? And if you're willing to spend money on this or that, this should be one of the things that you're willing to spend money on if the free option isn't working out. Like, we have to be our own advocates when it comes to this.
And I think, I'm pretty sure Dina would give me the stamp of approval on this statement. I think it is important to try to forge those relationships with a mental health professional prior to when you have a crisis, because when you are in a crisis, it's just so hard to ask for help, and it's so frustrating if you do ask for help and what you get isn't what you're expecting or wanting.
Absolutely. I'm a huge advocate of, you know what, once a year we could probably all use some time sitting down with the social worker. I mean, we already do it for our physical health once a year, and nobody skips their annual physical because they feel good that day. But that's always our excuse not to go talk to somebody about our mental health. It's, I feel pretty good today. We know we have a lot of stress, we have sleep issues, whatever it may be. Once a year, like you said, figure out who your person might be as your mental health resource, and once a year do a check-in with them. And then, like you're saying, when the crisis happens, if it happens, you know how the process works. You know what's going to happen. You know how to make that appointment. It's not scary because you know how this goes. But that all, I agree, needs ideally to be front loaded so that you're not figuring out this system when you need it most.
I don't think I made this up. I'm sure I ripped it off somewhere, but I like to call it the checkup from the neck up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
once a year, whether you feel like you need it or not, the checkup from the neck up.
I agree 100%.
Yes. Okay, so 11 years ago, when these events were happening in your life and you got help, at that time, did you, at the Indianapolis Fire Department, did you have a peer support team or a peer support network?
We did not. We had a CISM program, so critical incident stress management, for about 20 years before that. And I really didn't have much interaction with it. I don't know how active it was, but that was the only thing we really had in place. I didn't honestly even know about the employee assistance program until I was getting suspended and found out that that was one of my options. And I'm sure they had told me about it. It was probably negligence on my part. Unfortunately, what a lot of agencies will do, though, is they bring up the EAP and bring the EAP in like the first week of the academy. Our academy's, I don't even know how long, over 6 months. It's a pretty long academy. So in the first 3 days on the job, a lot of agencies will bring in, hey, this is what your EAP is. This is what it does for you. And it's this whirlwind of information that you retain maybe 2% of. Who knows what the percentage is? Not a lot. And that's your only exposure to it. And that's one of the things we've worked on, is to regularly make sure that our people know who EAP is, what it is, how you access it, rather than just bringing it up their first couple of days on the job, because that's what happened with me. I'm sure somebody mentioned it. I just had no idea it was an option. And we didn't have any type of peer program that was routinely getting that information out like we do now.
And that's such a key. My friend Shantae always says once is never. And she's talking about it in terms of, say, a social media post. If you say that something one time, no one's going to ever hear it.
Mm-hmm.
But I do believe that's the same thing in the fire service. Those first couple of days of your career, you're getting information about your pension and your 457 and your insurance, and you're drinking literally from a fire hose.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to remember that little snippet of information about the EAP.
Yeah,
Just
because
not.
and you're not anticipating needing it. The other things, well, I need to pay attention to my insurance and my pension. I'm going to need that. I'm never going to need the behavioral health stuff. That's for other people. So yeah, that's not going to be the thing you retain most often.
Oh, that's such a good point. Such a good point. So tell me, what does your peer support system look like today in 2023? What's your program look like?
So we have a battalion chief of wellness and support who's my supervisor. He's in headquarters. I'm the coordinator of wellness and support. So I'm also, we're both 40-hour a week, although we're always on call. So weeks are normally longer than 40 hours. But so we're in the admin. We have 9 peers. We have 3 on each shift that we have out in the companies who assist us at the company level. And we interact in a few different ways. We obviously, what most people think of is you have the bad call, and then peer support reaches out, and that's what we do. And that was one of the big shifts with our program, is rather than bringing everyone to us, we now send our peers out to the firehouses just to stop by, do a check-in with the crews after the bad calls, let them know about resources. We really don't talk about the call at all unless people want to. We let them know why we're there. But hey, we want to make sure you have good coping information and that you know how to access resources if you need them, how to access us, kind of in and out. So we do that. We get a lot of requests for assistance. Our program has grown leaps and bounds by the number of people who reach out to us for help. It's been pretty amazing over the last 5 years how willing people have become to get help. So we get a lot of requests. We also, if somebody's been off for an extended period, we look at 2 weeks. If somebody's been off, we get a peer assigned just to reach out, do a check-in, make sure they're doing okay, see if they need grocery store, lawn mowed, whatever it may be, just to see how they're doing. Let them know that they haven't been forgotten. We're launching a family support program. That's one of our goals for this year. It's deep in the making. We have the training all squared away. We're building a retiree program this year as well, because our retirees often get forgotten, and once they lose their identity from this job, they often struggle too. So we're really working hard to get our retirees a program that we can work through. We have a full-time chaplain, so 40 hours a week, and then he has 2 auxiliary chaplains that work with him. We have a yoga program in place. We have a cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia program in place, as well as sleep coaching. So it's really, we're trying to take a holistic approach. We have a really good fitness program as well. We're all in the same building. So Indianapolis is one of the original 10 cities for the WFI, and we work really hard to maintain the Wellness Fitness Initiative within our agency and to grow from that. And Chief Malone has been wonderful about giving us the freedom to and our expertise to explore that. And he has supported the initiatives that we've wanted to create. And that's really helped too. That top-down support, particularly for mental health. When you have top-down support, it makes all the difference in the world for people's willingness to use it, because they know they're not going to be retaliated against or put on, it just makes that whole process so much better. But, we've grown a lot and continue to grow even now.
It really sounds like, because I've also spoken, not on the podcast, but offline with some of your physical wellness persons at the department, it really sounds like you have very comprehensive services. And here's what I'll get in my email. Someone will email me and they'll say, that is really cool what they're doing at Indianapolis, but ...
Mm-hmm.
But they're a big department. We could never make that happen here. Now, my question for you, you said it was Chief Malone, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Chief Malone is very supportive of all of the initiatives. Is it because he simply knows this is the right thing to do for his people? Or is it because he's looking at return on investment and cost-saving measures? Do you have any sense for that?
I mean, honestly, and maybe this is the easy way out, but I think it's both. I mean, he definitely sees that it's the right thing to do. One thing that I can definitely say about Chief Malone is that, I don't know if you can hear my dog blowing up in the background here, but my dog's going crazy.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about him later.
But Chief Malone definitely knows that it's the right thing to do. He is what I would say a firefighter's chief. He hasn't forgotten what it's like to be in the companies. And he's compassionate like that. He was very compassionate with me when he was suspending me. Like, that was how it went, but hey, you can get better. So it is the right thing to do, but he's also, he has his role with budgeting and making sure that we're saving money where we can save it and not spending extra where that's happening. So I think, for example, if we wanted to expand part of our program, he is 100%. If that's what we need to do, that's what we're going to do. But how do we justify it? What is the return on that investment? Because that's relevant as well. And if there's not a good enough return on that investment, how do we improve it? How do we make that happen? Where do we tweak it so that we can get it done? His goal is to say yes, but doing that in the way that makes the most sense, obviously, is the way to do it. So I definitely think there's both elements at play.
His goal is to say yes. Oh, I love that so much. I love it.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. So I guess I didn't realize that you were a 40-hour work week employee. So I'm just curious, what does a quote unquote typical work week look like for you?
Boy, yeah, the quote unquote part is an important variable there. So a lot of it is following up with people who've reached out to our officers who are concerned about employees and are like, this employee is approaching the point where I feel like I might need to discipline him or her. Would you guys be willing to come out and talk, or what can I do? So we do a lot of intervention like that, because we would prefer, obviously, getting people help before discipline is easier for everybody. So we do a lot of that. I do a fair amount of, like, if we have a new resource we want to explore, going out, vetting resources, seeing what offices look like, meeting with clinicians, finding out, if people are in network, if they're not in network, how do we get that process started and let them, I don't work on that part. I just let them know, hey, you're not in network, but we would like to use you. Do a lot of trainings. Another thing that Chief Malone has been very good about is if a surrounding department needs assistance, he's like, if you're not busy with something else, go help those people. If it helps the fire service, it helps us. So I do spend some time also helping other agencies build programs, or if they have an employee who's struggling, trying to get them resources. Um, and then again, checking in on people. Since I'm in the health and wellness center, we have a separate center where our people who are coming to see our athletic trainers for work conditioning and things like that, as well as we have a gym in there where our peer fitness people are. So I just go down and make rounds and just check in. And, as my boss would say, I put my face in the place and just to say hi, have conversations with people that aren't about mental health, just so they can see that there's more to me than just that. And it also increases their comfort level. So good PR for the program. So I guess if there's typical, that would be typical, but it certainly varies quite a bit from week to week. And then on Fridays, we have our yoga program at our local. So I teach lead yoga class there every Friday. And then during the week, some stations will call and ask me to come out and teach yoga at the stations. So I load up the mats and blocks and go around the city and teach yoga at our firehouses too.
That is such an incredible, all of those things are incredible benefits, but the fact that a station can just request you to come out and teach a yoga class, unbelievable. I love that.
Yeah. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? I have one more question actually about your peer supporters. You said that you have 3 per shift and you kind of outlined what tasks that they were doing, but are they doing those on duty or off duty?
Usually on duty. That's our goal. And we can talk to the battalion chiefs and see what, staffing levels are like. So they can go if they need to visit a firehouse on shift, we can usually make that happen. We do some of our trainings, people are off duty, but our peers also get some stack pay. So our peer fitness trainers get a stipend each year for being peer fitness trainers. I approached Chief Malone about, can we get a stipend for our peers as well? They're all part of the WFI. And he was like, yeah, absolutely. We can make that happen. There should be parity there. So they do get some stack pay that is an incentive for them to do some things off duty if we need it. But predominantly what they do, we try and make it on duty because they have their relationships with the people in their battalions on their shifts. So they've developed that rapport before time. So if we can keep that on shift, it's all the better because they know the people they're going to visit and makes it a little more comfortable.
Understood. So you hinted a little bit about your peer fitness trainers and your health and wellness program and all kinds of things wrapped up in there. Can you tell me a little bit about what that all looks like? Does each firehouse have sort of a small gym and then you have a central larger gym, or tell me all of the things?
Yeah, so every Indianapolis firehouse has a gym of some kind in it with some type of cardio, free weights. Some have a machine, depending on, some of our firehouses are old and very small, but everybody has some kind of workout equipment. We've worked a lot with, I say it's the fitness division, but they've worked with Planet Fitness a lot and get donations as Planet Fitness moves out. Workout machines, we're able to get those and then put those in our firehouses to update equipment. And then we have our health and wellness center where I work. Our battalion chief of health and wellness is in that office, our peer fitness coordinator, our nutritionist, myself, our chaplain. We're all in the same building, as well as our athletic trainers who work downstairs. And we have a gym in that facility. It's also where we have our CPAT course. In our annual, we do a work performance evaluation that's similar to the CPAT. That's in that building as well. And then we just opened a new training center that has a full court basketball court, a cardio room, a weight room, gym, all that in our training facility as well. So we have a lot of opportunities. And we also, it's nice because since we're all in the health and wellness center together, we have a real symbiosis between mental health and physical health. If they're working out somebody who seems like they're down, or they're telling them a story about how their marriage is falling apart, they're like, hey, why don't we go upstairs and talk to Brandon? Or if I have somebody who's depressed and it's like, I just can't get out and move like I used to, I'm like, well, let's get downstairs, get you with PFT and see if they can get you a workout, get you set up, and maybe you can start working out and feel better. So we work together a lot with referrals. So it's been really nice that we're able to coordinate things that way.
And listeners, in case you missed it, perhaps had a little absence seizure or something like that, you are seeing the synthesis of mental health and physical health tied together, which they are. They're tied together. You can't
Hmm.
separate them. But Indianapolis is tying them together in terms of services, which is huge.
Yeah.
Kudos, kudos, kudos. Well, what I heard and what I have thought or known for a lot of years is that Indianapolis has, now you didn't call it Fit for Duty, but is it officially called Fit for Duty within your department?
Yes, it is. It's called Fitness for Duty. Yeah, to get the evaluation whether or not you can work. Is that what you're?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And you've had that in place for a lot of years, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And this is one of the things that's very scary for a lot of departments. And what I say, of course, well, what firefighters say is the two things they hate are change and things staying the same.
Yeah.
But fire departments, I think, kind of operate on a sliding scale from, Indianapolis, which is kind of doing the most in terms of services and also Fit for Duty. And then there's departments that they're having trouble getting their personnel to agree to a yearly physical exam because the personnel are afraid of that. So basically, we're afraid of what we don't know.
Yeah.
Tell me, it's my understanding, and in your job to correct all of my fallacies, but it is my understanding that the Fit for Duty test was actually designed and validated by your department with the help of a company. Is that correct?
I believe so. Yep. I believe so.
And the big piece of it is if someone doesn't pass, there are measures in place to help them pass. Am I tracking correctly?
Yep. So far, so good.
Okay, so I'm going to turn the mic back over to you and tell us a little bit. I know you're more in the mental health space of it, but you're also in the building, so I have to make you tell me. Tell me what you can or what you can talk about regarding your Fit for Duty program/requirement.
Yeah. If someone is injured or even comes in for their annual physical and can't complete certain portions of that, maybe due to VO2 max or irregularities on their EKG, whatever it may be, we also have referrals that can come at the company level. That can go through a battalion chief to say, an officer can say, I'm concerned about this person and their safety, and I think we need to have them evaluated to turn out if they're fit. We can do that for mental health as well. Our goal with a lot of these things, I mentioned that we're one of the 10 cities from the WFI. The whole point of the WFI was getting people help without it being punishment, because the punishment's what we're afraid of. We don't want it to be punitive. And punitive measures encourage people to hide things. And that's not what we want. We want people to be healthy. And that's, I think, what we try and do with our Fit for Duty. It's not saying that you're a bad person, but it's saying we have responsibilities on this job. It can be a safety issue if you're not, an optimal performer. So let's get you there. And whether you go to light duty or whatever it may be, here's where we need you. And people get referred back to us. So somebody, let's say for psychological reasons, is said, right now we can't have you on duty. They refer them back to us in peer support and wellness and support, and we'll have a conversation about what do you need to do, what resources can we find so that we can get you back to work. Then they make that appointment and go back in to be reevaluated. And it's the same way on the physical side, that our peer fitness folks will work with somebody to see what they need, or if they need referred out for other care, for cardiac care, whatever it may be. That happens because we want people to get better. Obviously, we're all most valuable on the street for both, just the reasons of why we do what we do for a living, but also from a monetary standpoint, it's cheaper to have us doing our jobs than have us off the job. So we want people to get better and get back in their role and get back on the street. But yeah, it really all is designed not to be punitive, but just to get you healthy again, which should be everybody's goal anyway.
And that's the biggest piece of it. I think that it is no one's goal to put anyone off the job. It's the goal to raise all the ships by raising the tide. So thank you for giving us some insight into that. Well, I want to talk about dogs.
Okay.
because I always want to talk about dogs. Now, I know you have a dog because I could hear a little barky bark for a second,
Yes.
but I want to know first, does your peer support team have any dogs?
We do not, but we are trying to get one now. Our battalion chief of wellness and battalion chief of health and safety. I'm sorry. Um, she has a dog and she's trying to get it certified to do all that. But as of now, we do not have a peer support dog. IMPD has 2, so our police department has a couple that we can use if we need them, but we don't have one right now.
Oh, I am crushed with disappointment, but also I'm very elated that you're working on it.
Yes.
And then tell me about your dog, or is it dogs?
It is a dog and 2 cats, but we have Gunner is our German Shepherd. We're not sure how old. He was abandoned. We found him wandering the streets of a nearby city, and he was in the pound, but he's as full-blooded as a shepherd can get, and 130 pounds. He's a big guy, but yeah, we're not sure how old he is. Probably around 10, so he's getting gray in the whiskers. But he and I are tracking each other in that regard, so we both have some company with the gray beards. But yeah, he's a good dude, loud, particularly during podcasts. But
Well, he's
he's
just
my buddy.
making himself heard.
He
has
is.
things to say.
He's on duty.
Well, and also, what does he think of those cats?
Not a lot, not a great deal. Luckily they're much more nimble than he. So, yeah,
Okay.
they torment him, but he just tends to leave them alone.
All right. Here's the thing. I am amused by cats and their personality. They like rush into the room. Is there anything to mess up or eat in here? No. Okay, I'm leaving. I like that vibe. But I am violently allergic to cats.
Interesting.
It's so bad. Okay, so we are getting to the point of the podcast where I say to you, what kind of things did you want to talk about that we missed? Or do you have some parting thoughts for the audience? Some nuggets?
I know that sleep is one of your passions.
Heck yes, it is.
You do amazing work in that area, by the way. I love it. It's also one of my passions, and I think we talk about tying in physical and mental health, and I think one of the best ways we can do that is through better sleep. Like, everything gets better with better sleep. So if I had a nugget to give out that may be unrelated to anything we've talked about so far, it would be to stress the importance of figuring out at what point of the day you get tired and set your bedtime and your wake up time the same all the time. Make that your habit. Go to bed and get up at the same time, even on your days off, all that stuff. And stop missing your first phase of deep sleep by staying up at the firehouse to watch a movie when you know you're tired and you ought to go to bed. Go to bed. We need the HGH that gets dumped in that first phase. We need to get our brain cleaned out. That happens. So stop neglecting your sleep. Get on a routine, and please, please, please stick with it. It's going to benefit you physically and mentally more than you could ever imagine.
Right now, I'm saying, well, first of all, I'm doing the Beavis and Butthead, rock on. And I'm cheering for you with my foam fingers. No, it's so critical. And so many of the younger firefighters throw up their hands and are like, I can't control it, so I'm just not even going to try.
Mm-hmm.
Bro, I got 2 sleep cycles before the tones went off, and you were still playing Call of Duty.
Yeah.
So who's winning here?
Yeah.
Well, here's another fun fact. So not only did Dina get me down to South Carolina in August, but Dr. Allison Brager,
yes,
the sleep neuroscientist, is going to be there too. So we can all hang out with Allison and talk about sleep, which is going to be amazing.
Yeah, talk about a lineup. That would be incredible.
I know. Have you met Allison in person?
I have not.
Oh my gosh, get ready to have your hair blown back. She is something else. I love that woman. All right. Well, I've been looking forward to this conversation for quite a long time, and I so much appreciate your time today, Brandon. And
yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And I think with that, we can end on that, drop the mic on sleep. What do you think?
Sounds perfect.
Sounds perfect. All right, listeners, this has been AZ and Brandon, and we are officially out.